Hi, Alan Schimmel for DevOps.com, DevOps TV here at DOES San Francisco 2016, and we're joined by Sirish Rahuram from Platform 9. I hope I didn't mangle that too bad, Suresh.
No, you were just fine. Thank you.
Fantastic. So, Suresh, Platform 9, of course, is a sponsor here at DOES this year. But in addition to being at DOES, I know next week you guys are at another conference where
That's
you're
right.
having a bit of an announcement.
Yeah, we've had a few. So we're excited to be here at the DevOps conference. We're having a lot of interest at the booth. Just two announcements that you and I were talking about.
Right.
The first one is at OpenStack's
Right.
Barcelona Summit recently, we announced Omni, which is the ability for OpenStack to provide a single pane across private and public clouds.
So a hybrid.
So it's a hybrid. And the reason that's exciting is because for the DevOps community, it gives them one API, right? That abstracts away all of the underlying infrastructure, whether that be on-prem, whether that be public cloud, and they can use a consistent set of tools and processes around that. So that was the first one.
And that's called Omni.
It's Omni.
Right.
It's open source.
And it is open source.
It's open source. We developed it. We released it. It's on GitHub. So it's GitHub. Search for Omni. You'll find it.
Fantastic.
It had really good reception at both the OpenStack Summit and also here at the show here.
DevOps Enterprise.
There's been a lot of interest.
Fantastic. And the second announcement?
The second one is actually at KubeCon, which is actually running in
Kubernetes.
parallel. Is Kubernetes. It's running in parallel to this conference. And we have a managed Kubernetes product side by side with managed OpenStack. And one of the things that I think we see a lot of interest in is, I think a lot of the DevOps community were the early adopters for something like Amazon Web Services 6-7 years ago, OpenStack maybe 3 years ago, and today there's a lot of interest in containers and Kubernetes. And with Platform 9 kind of making both available side by side, there's been a lot of interest around that because of our ability to say, look, your existing traditional applications can be managed using a infrastructure as a service layer with managed OpenStack. But as you think about containerization, as you think about moving to the next level of operations with something like a Kubernetes framework, you're able to start using piecemeal, migrating portions of that application into Kubernetes native services while modeling the rest of the application to remain in the infrastructure as a service layer. So having both OpenStack and Kubernetes side by side and letting customers have the choice between how much do they use OpenStack today, how much do they use Kubernetes, that has really been seeing a lot of traction at KubeCon as well.
Got it. So, we, besides DevOps.com, we have another site, Container Journal, that is really kind of focused on microservices, containers, and stuff like that. And what we see is tremendous, not only the amount of uptake of containers and microservices, but the speed at which enterprises are uptaking containers and microservices. Almost, I'm remembering back to my days when VMware was first getting started, almost faster than VMware's adoption rate was, which kind of boggles the mind when you think about it. I wonder, though, with OpenStack and Kubernetes, right, is that by setting the dials to those two platforms, right? If it was just Kubernetes without OpenStack, and I assume you can do it, OpenStack's not necessary for the Kubernetes.
Correct. So so what this does is it gives you all combinations, right? So you can choose to use, if you have traditional applications, Windows, .NET applications, right? I mean, you may aspire to do containers, but the reality is that it's probably not the easiest thing to do. And you can stay in an infrastructure as a service land and still achieve DevOps automation using the infrastructure as a service APIs.
Right.
If you're, on the other hand, you're someone like a Spotify or one of the newer mobile-first systems, you could choose to go entirely Kubernetes, right? Microservices. And so our system is built on a premise that the stages of cloud computing that we're seeing, right? We used to be in a physical-only world 20 years ago. With VMware, we moved to virtualization, saying that applications can now be decoupled from physical machines. Then we said we're going to have something like an AWS, which is really an on-demand way to procure and provision virtual machines. And OpenStack brought that to the private cloud enterprise market. And then microservices take things on top of that, saying, look, you don't need a full machine. You can model these as small decoupled, applications can be modeled as small decoupled processes, which brings about a next layer of efficiency. And there's going to be things beyond that in the serverless computing, and there's going to be, I'm sure, something beyond that. our vision is that this journey is going to continue. There's going to be progressively higher levels of abstraction, and we embrace that. And we offer all of these, we intend to offer all of these choices to our customers. With OpenStack, we have the best infrastructure as a service platform. With Kubernetes, we have the best microservices and container platform. We will do something in the serverless space. We will do something in whatever comes beyond that. And the benefit to our customers is they can use whatever they want. They're not forced to use the others if they don't want to. So if you have a pure Kubernetes or containers environment, you can just choose to live in the container world and not see anything else. But on the other hand, if you're having an application today that is VM compatible, right, it's somewhat monolithic and needs a little more decomposing before you can really make all of it Kubernetes native, then we can really help you facilitate that transition by running both systems side by side while you cut over progressively to Kubernetes. So we don't have a vested interest in pushing one framework versus the other. We're an open source as a service company, and we'll take the leading open source frameworks in these spaces, make them available as a service so it's really simple and easy to run, and help our customers be successful with realizing value from these cloud computing technologies.
Fantastic. Suresh, on the again, I'm going to return to the Kubernetes container thing with you around open services. I've asked many people this question. Certainly, the whole containerization of computing is the hot thing right now, right? We've all seen the progression of hot things through the years. But are containers the end of history as we know it? I mean, what do you see coming down the pipe, or down the pipeline beyond maybe containerization and cloud and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think two things come to mind, right, to that question, Alan, right? The first one is, I think containerization are a primitive that really enables a better way to think about software. And if I can step back a little bit, I feel like with the progression from virtualization to infrastructure as a service, we did not fundamentally change how we built software, right? What we did with infrastructure as a service, we said, okay, developers are going to build software the way they did, and we're going to bolt on operations. We're going to bolt on operations on top of that. And I think the exciting thing about containers is that with something like Kubernetes, it really tries to take an attempt at saying, okay, how do we better design software so that it's designed with operations in mind? So Kubernetes has constructs such as deployments. Deployments are your software versions, and you're talking about, okay, when I'm building a new piece of software, I can think about how is it going to be deployed? How is it going to be scaled? How is it going to be rolled back to a previous version, to a forward version? How do I do a canary upgrade where I progressively cut over a portion of my traffic in production to a new version and only scale that out once the metrics are successful? And this is a level of functionality that was just not possible before. So I think containers are really that building block that have enabled a fundamentally better way to do DevOps, because you're not bolting on ops to dev. Right. You're truly thinking about dev and ops holistically with some of the constructs that are enabled.
And it's the architecture.
It's the architecture.
It's not just a concept.
An afterthought, right? It's not an afterthought. You're not bolting on ops to dev.
Absolutely.
And I think that's been exciting, right? That's enabled by containerization. It's not containerization alone, but frameworks such as Kubernetes that enable you to do that. I think that is, a huge value. I think that we're very, very early with that. Mm-hmm. I think that organizations are going to realize that the next 5 to 7 years, there's massive ROI from just fundamentally better ways to think about architecture for DevOps. And I think the other thing that's exciting is maybe things like serverless computing, because with Kubernetes or microservices frameworks in general, you still need to think about, okay, I've got nodes and clusters and pods and deployments and replication controllers and daemon sets and pet sets. I mean, that's a lot of abstractions I'm dealing with. If I'm a developer, I've got these web services, I've got a mobile app. I mean, these are all still concepts that I'm having to come to terms with. Yeah. Why don't you make that disappear, right? I think serverless computing holds the promise of being able to abstract even more away, and probably building on top of frameworks such as Kubernetes, but making some of those underlying plumbing disappear.
So, that was the best answer I've heard to this question so far, by the way. But yes, serverless computing has a lot of promise. I think we'll have to see. I think it's a little early yet to really see where that goes with. But I think we're also about out of time. But I appreciate your thoughts, and if we took a little more time, I apologize. But where can people get more information about Platform 9?
So we're on at the show, if you're at the show, but we're on Twitter at Platform9sys, and our website is platform9.com.
Excellent. Suresh from Platform 9, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Alan.
I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. This is Alan Schimmel for DevOps.com's DevOps TV.